Drew Dix was involved in some very hairy, clandestine type operations in Vietnam, many of which I'm sure Drew can't talk about.
As the lone American, Dix led Chinese, Cambodian, and Vietnamese mercenaries in unconventional operations.
Some soldiers, go to fight, a little bit sure,
During the Tet Offensive of 1968, Dix led a small contingent of troops in a harrowing 56-hour battle with 2 Viet Cong battalions.
I thought it was a kiss-off situation as far as I was concerned.
I knew there wouldn't be much support. I didn't realize there'd be no support.
The action earned Dix the Medal of Honor.
President Johnson was the president that awarded me the Medal of Honor. It was the last official act that he did in office. A very proud time for me to bring my family there to witness that. I was still in a fog, and if I didn't have a video of that ceremony, I might not remember much about it.
Drew Dix grew up in the foothills of Colorado, in the small steel town of Pueblo. At an early age, he developed a strong sense of right from wrong.
Whatever he did right. Drew was very active in everything. He loved everything. He loved the bugs and the hunting. He had a wonderful father. And of course, he was in the service and retired from the service.
I thought a lot of my father, and I thought he, was doing an important job. And when you're growing up, if those things stick with you, it's what you remember.
He was at ease. He was in his element when he was in the outdoors. And I think that carried him through his success in Vietnam, and being comfortable in the environment, but also in leading his troops.
Drew Dix volunteered for the Army in 1962 at the age of 17. Initially, he was a paratrooper with the 82nd Airborne Division. At age 21, Dix began Special Forces training, and in 1966 received his Green Beret.
The motto of the Special Forces is to free the oppressed. There's 2 ways you free the oppressed, and neither one is defensive, both are proactive.
He had 2 little boys, which were quite young at the time, and we knew he would be gone a year. And so we wanted that year to get over in a hurry.
I went there knowing I knew everything. I mean, I might have been a little cocky, but I did. I felt comfortable with it.
En route to Vietnam, Drew Dix was pulled off his Special Forces A-Team and reassigned to the Central Intelligence Agency. Jim Monroe was the CIA operative in Chau Doc Province.
4 Corps was going to be all SEALs. I Corps got Marines, and then 2 and 3 Special Forces. I didn't want a SEAL. I specifically asked for Special Forces. And the chances of me getting that are nil. It happened. Of all the provinces in 4 Corps down there, they all had SEALs. I had Drew. We're on one end of the town. On the far end of the town is the Special Forces B team, commanded by a lieutenant colonel. And they had no idea that Drew was active military. We would go over there, but they had no say-so over what we did. We had our own show. We answered to other people.
A lot of people over there were working under the auspices of different organizations that really didn't make them, they didn't tell you what they were actually doing, but there were a lot of intrigue going on that I was totally oblivious to tell you the truth.
As the lone American, Dix was assigned to lead the Provincial Reconnaissance Unit, an armed force of indigenous troops known as the PRUs.
There were Vietnamese, Cambodians, and some Chinese Nungs. Probably the best way to describe them, they were mercenary. We paid them well. They were loyal fighters, loyal soldiers, and they were good at it. They despised the communists. They liked their way of life, and communism wouldn't allow them to pursue their way of life as they knew it.
The Dix mission was to infiltrate Viet Cong infrastructure and capture high-ranking officials.
We had some of the highest success rates of any unit in Vietnam for capturing people. We were capturing over 40 50 a month. Unbelievable amount of combat that some of those elements were in, but there's never anything written about it. If something's written about Vietnamese, it's in a derogatory sense in a lot of cases, because they didn't win the war, but hell, we drug it on. They're the same people as the Viet Cong, the same people.
Drew was always very much of a gentleman. He treated his fellow co-workers with a lot of respect, and he treated the Vietnamese, the PRUs, the Nungs that he worked with an equal amount of respect. He treated them as human beings.
I met the Jew in 1967. Jew are very, very good people. All the time we go to fight, go together, you know. One time we go to Tung Cu Kee at night time. Vietnam people, they talk. Jew, he don't know the Vietnam. I know. Jew take care of me, I take care of Jew. You know, just go to the war, just, you know, like that. Hey, Jew, not sleep tonight. I say, what? I said, not sleep. I take the 9mm, I put my head to sleep. I look at the, like that, look at the people, you know. Yeah. He come, they'll kill. 68, oh, Vietnam is a big fight, you know.
Tet is the biggest holiday of the year in Vietnam. Every year, a ceasefire was called for 3 days in observance of the holiday.
Our business was collection of information, intelligence, and we knew that something was in the wind.
Suspicious of recent Viet Cong activity, Dix led a reconnaissance operation with a Navy SEAL platoon to the Cambodian border.
We got shot at. Wasn't anything real big, but I figured before we'd go any further, I'd make contact with the nearest Vietnamese unit, artillery unit, and see if we could line up some artillery support in case it was a big element. And that's when I found out. And I tuned in on their frequency. You could hear the chatter. And I looked back, we could see Chow Duck several miles away, and it was glowing. You know, and one of the SEALs mentioned that it might be fireworks or something. I said, well, it's fireworks if it got out of hand and they're burning the town down, because that's big. I knew there were some civilians that were holed up, possibly captured, and I was told that the VC were in the one nurse's house, which wasn't a good sign.
You can hear them running around up on the roof and then running back and forth in the living room because they were shooting out in front of my living room door. It got really noisy because they rocketed some humongous holes. They rocketed the back of the house completely out, it seems. Huge holes in the kitchen wall so they could walk. Instead of going, you know, when they're running around between the houses, they could actually go through the houses. For some strange reason, I heard somebody rattle the door once, but then they just ran on. They didn't open the door to the room I was in. I remember just sitting there, and then as the time went on and on, the hours went by, I knew that I was never going to get out of there.
Making the landing downtown Chow Duck, the confluence of these two rivers, was a little bit like Normandy.
At first light, Dix and his small force began their assault on the beach of Chow Duck.
All hell's breaking loose. The Vietnamese VC are firing mortars within the town. That means they initiated the attack in the town. We got there at about 0400. They attacked at midnight. They had virtually taken over the town very, very easy.
Nearly 600 Viet Cong had taken hold of Chow Duck.
To this point, we had no help from the Vietnamese. They were, all hope was lost. I mean, the acting commander was completely demoralized because his family, wife and children he had heard were killed, and his good friend and bodyguard was executed.
It got worse. No United States support was available, and the nearby Special Forces B team was ordered not to enter the city.
So we thought we're just going to have to take care of business ourselves. It didn't look good, But we had the momentum, and I had some gutsy guys to go with me, and we took off.
Determined to rescue the civilians and restore Chow Dock, Dix took matters into his own hands. First on the list, Maggie O'Brien.
Maggie represented a lot of things. She was a volunteer nurse that had time with the Peace Corps. She was, we thought, I believe, very idealistic, good-hearted person. Believed that she could make a difference. And to think that she was in that situation, helpless and possibly killed, because we were told that she was probably killed, was something we had to find out.
Bullets were going everywhere. I mean, I don't know where. And the whole, they were just fighting all around. And then, like I said, we pulled up with the 2 Jeeps, and then Drew and I went up to the gate. We didn't know if she was alive or not. And the door was locked. Her vehicle was parked out front, and a Scout just riddled with holes. I mean, it just shot all to pieces.
We were really doubtful that she was there or alive, because they were in there. And there, you know, there must have been 1,000 bullet holes in that building. So.
After a while, I heard Drew and Jim call Maggie, Maggie. And then, I could hear it, but they was running around, so I opened my realized I'm here. I'm here.
And we're standing in front of this large, heavy iron gate. Well, it was locked. I couldn't open it. As soon as she stepped out, there were 2 VC in the front room just to our left, you know, about 10 feet away. And they had run out. Just about the time she opened the door, they almost ran into her. But they kept going. The VC had ransacked the entire house and piled everything in the middle of the floor. I mean, we're talking about 2-3 foot high pile of drawers and everything, and emptying them out. And I said, Maggie, get the key. And I realized now how dumb that must have sounded.
It was in the midst of this rubble where I usually keep it. It was full of rubble. So I picked it up, and I remember my hands and knees were shaking so bad I could hardly open the door.
And she brought it over there, and it was kind of shaking and rattling. I reached in there and steadied her hand a little bit. She opened the door and
pulled me down, because we were starting to be shot at again. So they pulled me down, and my knees got cut in the glass, and they sort of half dragged me, helped carry me, walked to the Jeep and threw me in there and covered me with some flak jackets and barreled off shooting, and there was some, gunfire going on at the time.
The whole front of our house was all shot up, and bullets were flying everywhere, but it just, like I say, it just wasn't our time. It just, no one was hit.
Elsewhere, 8 United States volunteers were trapped and possibly captured, but not forgotten. Dix and 4 Navy SEALs were on their way.
saw both their buildings had been destroyed. One burned totally, one just destroyed. And I left the SEALs and the 2 Jeeps outside the yard, and I went in, and there were some BC in there, and we had an exchange of gunfire. I was calling, and then I heard this one guy I'd met. He was the agriculture advisor that I kind of liked. Talked to him, and he stuck his head out, you know, and I said, who's there? He said, all 8 of us. So I said, let's go, and they didn't want to come out.